Good afternoon. Welcome to This Week in Turkey. Turkey celebrated the 95th anniversary of the founding of the Turkish Republic on Monday.
Turkey celebrated the 95th anniversary of the founding of the Turkish Republic on October 29th. President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, senior government and high-ranking military officials, and political opposition leaders laid a wreath at Anıtkabir, the mausoleum of the founder of the Turkish Republic, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, in the capital, Ankara. Ceremonies were held in every city, municipal, and village centers in the country. The opening of the new airport in Istanbul, which comes amid intensifying attacks at our economy, is a symbol of Turkey's power, determination, and achievements over the past 95 years, President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan wrote in the Anıtkabir Memorial Book. Today, we are celebrating the 95th anniversary of our republic by opening the new airport in Istanbul, one of the most prestigious projects in the world, Erdoğan wrote. After the program in Anıtkabir, Erdoğan received greetings at the presidential complex. Republican People's Party (CHP) leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu and Good Party leader Meral Akşener participated at the ceremony in Anıtkabir, but abstained from the program at the presidential palace. In a written statement, Kılıçdaroğlu said they have the responsibility of embracing the republic with democracy, as they defend the democratic, secular, and social state of law instead of supporting the prosperity of presidential circles. In his message, Kılıçdaroğlu criticized the government for supporting a one-man rule and supporting the prosperity of a rentier rather than the people. Akşener visited the first parliament building of the republic early on October 29th, along with his lawmakers. The Good Party leader said, "The Justice and Development Party, AKP, has not aimed to administrate the republic, but to confiscate it since the beginning of its rule." The AKP is carrying the celebration of the state ceremony to a building site in Istanbul because they see the world as construction, she said. Nationalist Movement Party MHP leader Devlet Bahçeli attended the celebration ceremonies in Ankara, but did not participate at the reception in Istanbul.
Finance and Treasury Minister Berat Albayrak has announced a tax reduction package aiming at reviving the economy amid the ongoing currency crisis.
Finance and Treasury Minister Berat Albayrak has unveiled a tax cuts package including 6 topics, aiming at full economic recovery following the currency turmoil in recent months. "We will do these in order to reinvigorate the sectors that have contracted by currency impact," he said at a ministerial meeting in Ankara on Wednesday. "The tax cuts will be effective as of tomorrow," he added. The value-added tax cuts in housing sales and the furniture sector from 18% to 8% has been extended until next year, according to Albayrak's remarks. The special consumption taxes on domestic appliances will be suspended until 2019. For motor vehicles with engines under 1600 cc, special consumption tax rates will be lowered 15%. All VAT rates for commercial vehicles will be lowered to 1% from 18%. Albayrak also said the number of companies taking part in Turkey's anti-inflation campaign has reached 2,500. "For the inflation rate in September, I have said we left the worst in the back. This trend will continue step by step. Although some circles do crisis mongering for Turkey, God willing, we will be seeing all the positive developments with the inflation figures in October," he said.
Joining us today to comment on the recently introduced tax cuts package and the latest developments in the Turkish economy is Sabri Öncü, who is the chief economist at the Center for Social Research and Original Thinking. Welcome, Dr. Öncü, once again to This Week in Turkey.
Hello, nice to be here.
So, do you think these recently introduced tax cuts that we've just heard about in the previous video will help to revive the economy? In other words, will this get citizens to spend again?
Well, as far as I understand, these tax cuts came in 6 different areas, mostly in the construction as well as automotive sector. And most of the purchases in the automotive sector are for imported cars for the middle to higher income families. I have doubts that this type of tax cuts would have a major impact on the aggregate demand of the average consumer in the country. That may have some impact. In other words, improve the demand to some extent, but it's very difficult to see a major impact, in my opinion, on the aggregate demand, given the areas in which these tax cuts were implemented.
So these tax reductions are raising doubts, actually, on the government's promise of fiscal discipline, as these incentives come at a time when the central bank has raised its inflation predictions quite sharply, in fact. So what's going on here, in your opinion?
Well, indeed, after the announcement of the inflation expectations numbers by the central bank, and following the announcement of also the tax cuts, the initial market reaction was more or less as you described. I mean, the market appeared quite disappointed with these tax cuts because the market being foreign creditors, if you like, and some of the analysts who follow Turkey quite closely appeared disappointed with these moves, and indeed this was reflected in a large increase of the dollar against the Turkish lira. So the initial reaction of the market was more or less, as many argued, the market saw this as a deviation from the promise that the government made in its fight against inflation. But to be honest with you, although the initial reaction was quite negative, I am a bit puzzled with what happened afterwards. I am having difficulties in reading why for the last a day and a half, if you like, because the lira started falling again. Dollars started falling against the lira late last night, and it continued going down. Apparently, the tensions between the Turkish government and the American government regarding the Pastor Brunson case is going down. And there seems to be some improvements in the case of the Khashoggi case. So there are a number of noises that are coming from. In other words, we cannot simply isolate the effect of the tax cuts as well as the recent inflation announcement from other political developments that are going on. So I don't know what to say. I mean, I am truly puzzled with what is going on, and am having difficulty in offering a meaningful explanation to the recent revival of the Turkish lira against the dollar. It's difficult. So many different signals are coming from many different directions. So I don't know what more to say.
Mm-hmm. Another important development of this week was the statement that came from Central Bank Governor Murat Çetinkaya during the presentation of the central bank's quarterly inflation report, in which he announced a sharp raise in the bank's inflation forecasts, and he predicted a rate of 23.5% by the end of the year, by the end of 2018. But when Çetinkaya was asked if inflation had already peaked, he declined to answer. So how do you evaluate this statement by Çetinkaya?
Well, if I were the president, governor of the Central Bank of Turkey, I would have reacted more or less the same. It's very difficult to make very short-term forecasts regarding where the inflation may be going. And as I understand, a new number will be released Monday, and the market is watching for that. Given the recent inflation announcements and the policy rate at the moment, what we observe is that the central bank policy rate is already in the negative territory in real terms, and market is waiting to hear the information regarding the inflation Monday. If the Monday inflation information goes up, as some expect, that may push not only the policy rate and other market rates into the negative territory in real terms, which may have harmful effects on Turkish lira, and as a result, we may again see an increase of the dollar against the Turkish lira, which may have some impact on the inflation. So very difficult to know. I would say Çetinkaya's long-term expectations are a bit optimistic. And let's wait and see what happens Monday. If the Monday inflation numbers also points toward an increase, then we may see an increase in the dollar, which may have an impact on inflation as well. I don't know. I mean, these are very volatile times. Difficult to predict the near future. On the other hand, I find Çetinkaya's forecasts regarding the inflation as well as the health of the economy half a year or a year from today a bit unrealistic. Let's hope that he is right. And I would say let's wait and see what happens, especially let's wait and see what happens after Monday when the inflation information is released and the market reacted to the released information.
So on that note, Dr. Öncü, let's conclude with a rather general question. In the past weeks, Finance Minister Albayrak has repeatedly assured both citizens and investors, saying that the worst had been left behind in the crisis, and he hinted that normalization was underway. But the central bank governors, Murat Çetinkaya's remarks that we've just talked about, or lack thereof, let's say, also raises some doubts. So my question to you is, in your opinion, is the crisis really over? Is the worst really left behind? Or is there enough evidence to predict another one emerging, another one in the making?
Well, given the current state of affairs in the world, not only in Turkey, I am a bit pessimistic about the near future of the world economy, not only the Turkish economy. So probably I wouldn't appear, if I were the finance minister of Turkey, I wouldn't appear as optimistic as Albayrak in my assessment of the near future. I have doubts that the worst is over. The world does not consist of the Turkish economy only. Many things are going on with many emerging market countries. Mexico recently joined the flock, and the Mexican currency peso is suffering. India is suffering also. Argentina has been with us for quite some time, as you know. So I don't know. If you can isolate Turkey from the rest of the world, maybe you can say things like Albayrak said, but given my doubts about where the world economy is heading, I have doubts that Turkey will decouple from the rest of the world, and Turkish economy will improve as much as Albayrak mentioned or expected. I doubt that the worst is over. We will see. However, the lira stabilized recently. I hope that it goes this way. As a member of this society, as a consumer who needs to purchase things to further his daily life. But let's see. So far, the performance is good, most likely because of the easing of the political tensions between Turkey and the U.S. Well, we'll see. But I have doubts that the worst is over yet.
Thank you very much, Dr. Öncü, for your comments and for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
So today we were joined by Sabri Öncü, who commented on the recent tax reduction package and the latest statements by Central Bank Governor Murat Çetinkaya. And now we'll continue with our next video. Istanbul's chief prosecutor has said in its first official confirmation that Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi was strangled as soon as he entered the Saudi consulate building in Istanbul, and his body was dismembered and destroyed afterwards.
Istanbul's chief prosecutor's office said on Wednesday that journalist Jamal Khashoggi was suffocated in a premeditated killing as soon as he entered Saudi Arabia's consulate 4 weeks ago, and his body was then dismembered and disposed of. In a statement issued after 2 days of talks with Saudi Arabia's public prosecutor, Saud al-Mojeb, it also said no concrete results were reached in those meetings. Later on Wednesday, the spokesman for the ruling AKP, Ömer Çelik, said Khashoggi's killing could not have been carried out without orders from senior positions, in one of Ankara's strongest accusations directed at Riyadh yet. Çelik also said it was not possible that Saudi officials had still not found the journalist's body after nearly a month of investigations. Khashoggi's death has escalated into a crisis for Saudi Arabia, which at first denied any knowledge of his disappearance on October 2nd. Mojeb later said Khashoggi's killing was premeditated, and Riyadh said 18 suspects had been arrested. But Turkey, which released a stream of evidence undermining Riyadh's early denials, has demanded more details, including the whereabouts of Khashoggi's body and who ordered his killing. Despite our well-intentioned efforts to reveal the truth, no concrete results have come out of those meetings. The Istanbul prosecutor's office said of the talks on Monday and Tuesday between Mojeb and Istanbul chief prosecutor İrfan Fidan.
President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan opened the new Istanbul airport on Monday.
President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan officially opened the country's new airport on Monday to coincide with the 95th anniversary of modern Turkey's foundation. The $12 billion project has been spearheaded under President Erdoğan's government, which envisions Istanbul becoming a global transit hub between Asia, Africa, and Europe. Speaking at the opening ceremony, President Erdoğan said the hub would further Turkey's role in the integration of global economies. With the operation of Istanbul Airport, European airspace will have to be restructured, he said. Planned to be the world's largest, the new Istanbul Airport will be capable of handling up to 90 million passengers by 2021, with further expansion leading to a total capacity of up to 200 million. But the opening was largely symbolic, as only a handful of flights will begin to operate in its first week. The flagship carrier, Turkish Airlines, says only some flights to Ankara, Izmir and Antalya, as well as international flights to northern Cyprus and Azerbaijan, will be using the new airport for now. Its other routes will remain at Atatürk for the rest of the year. The five-company consortium, Istanbul Grand Airport, which built the airport and will run it for 25 years, said 36,000 workers completed the first phase of the project in 42 months. At least 30 workers have died during its construction, and last month, police detained hundreds of protesting workers. Many workers and union representatives have been jailed, pending trial, after complaining about working conditions.
The quadrilateral summit between Turkey, Russia, Germany, and France over political steps toward peace in Syria was held in Istanbul on Saturday.
In a four-way summit held in Istanbul on Saturday, the leaders of Turkey, Russia, Germany, and France stressed the importance of a lasting ceasefire to end the bloodshed in war-torn Syria. Following the summit, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, along with Russian President Vladimir Putin, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and French President Emmanuel Macron, held a joint news conference calling on the international community to work hand in hand for a sustainable solution in Syria. We discussed a political solution in line with Syrian people's legitimate demands, which moves to reach stability in the country, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan told reporters. Erdoğan also noted that the main reason why the Syrian conflict became a global menace is because the international community did not respond adequately. French President Emmanuel Macron emphasized the importance of the Idlib agreement reached between Russia and Turkey. Russia and Turkey have negotiated an agreement that must be strictly implemented. Assurances were made on this point. We will all be extremely vigilant to ensure that these commitments are met and that the ceasefire is stable and sustainable, Macron said. The four leaders also called for the convening of a constitutional committee by the end of the year, according to the joint communiqué. In January, The participants at the Syrian Peace Conference held in Russia had agreed to form the 150-member committee to rewrite the Syrian constitution. Meanwhile, on the sideline of the summit, the leaders held bilateral meetings to discuss the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. According to Reuters, Turkish President Erdogan provided necessary information to Putin, Macron, and Merkel regarding the investigation of the murder. Erdogan said that Turkey was carrying out investigations, urging Saudi Arabia to reveal the perpetrators of the attack. The German Chancellor vowed to take necessary measures regarding the case, while France's Macron called for sanctions as a reaction.
That's all from This Week in Turkey. Thanks for tuning in and hope to see you again next Friday at 5 p.m. Goodbye.